Hi, my name is Nicole. I am a single mother of two. I'm a nurse. I'm a prophet of God. And Lord knows I have so many beautiful scars, but um, this is my beautiful scars. I am the product of two misguided teenagers. Um, Early in my childhood, my mother succumbed to addiction of crack cocaine. And so I had a turbulent childhood. But I want to talk about this story where this was the first time that I actually had an art in my heart for the Lord. And I want to share how I overcome that. I was 6 years old. My mom had went out on one of her binges and had left me and my other brothers and sisters home. At this point, it had been for 3 days. Um, we didn't have any lights. I remember us being in the house like huddled together because it was so cold and we had to wear our coats in the house. We didn't have any food. We were eating butter, literally eating butter because that was the only thing that was there. I remember my youngest brother at the time. He was maybe about 3 weeks old, maybe a month old, and we were giving him water because we didn't have any formula, and he was crying and crying and crying, and we didn't know what to do. We didn't know how to help because once again the oldest was 7 years old and I was 6 years old. I remember us taking his stroller and propping open the door because it was a light that set outside of our apartment because we were scared. And I remember people walking by and nobody tried to help us. 5 children just sitting there, no one tried to help us. And I got infuriated. And I knew where my mom was and where she would go to get high. And so I went there. And I remember walking in the door. My aunt opened up the door. And I walked in the door and I see my mom and I was like, when are you coming home? You left us. We don't have any food. I'm like, Day, which is my small brother, I'm like, he doesn't have any milk. I was like, when are you coming home? And I remember her grabbing me by my arm. And she threw me out the door. And she told me I wasn't going to mess up her house. And I remember looking up at her, pleading in my eyes. Please don't leave. Don't close the door. Because I was afraid. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. And I remember she looked at me with her eyes was glassed over. And she closed the door like I was nothing. Like we were nothing. And I remember walking home and I was like, God, you can't be real. I said, she hates us. How could you give me a mom that hates me? And I remember I walked to the payphone and I called my grandma, my grandmother. I called her Colette. At 6 years old, I knew to call I knew I had to prepare myself for adult things because that was what my life was. And my grandmother came and got us as usual. She would always come save the day when my mom would drop the ball. But it would be so short-lived because my mom would come back and the cycle would repeat itself. But I grew up and I got so many stories, but I'm just going to leave it at that one. But I grew up and I used to ask God, I was like, why you got me here? Why am I here? Why did you make me? Because all I feel is pain. All I know is abandonment and rejection. All I know is the people that were supposed to love me. And this is what they did. So I grew up not wanting to even hear I love you. Because that meant you was coming for something. You was going to take something from me. And I remember it got so bad. And I used to ask him, why did you even let me wake up? I used to pray not to wake up. Because the pain was so strong that I would rather not open my eyes than to open my eyes to the reality that was my life. But I smiled because it was just recently that the Lord, He began to talk to me about Isaiah 54 and how the restoration of Israel and how He called Israel a sing, O barren land, and how something that once couldn't produce that He was about to give life, and how once something that was considered cursed that He has put His blessings upon. And He compared that to me. He compared that to the restoration of me. And He told me, He said, I'm about to bring back the forgotten thing, the thing that you didn't even remember that you prayed, the thing that lost your desire for. I'm about to bring back that thing that you considered a dry place. I'm about to water that thing that you considered dead. I'm about to breathe life upon. And He told me, He said, this is why I didn't let you die. Because I saw you here. I saw you in this place. I saw you with this heart and this mind. And so I just want to encourage anyone who is in that place of pain, in that place of feeling stuck, in that doubtful place, that God knows the beginning, but He also knows the end. You may just be in the middle, but the good part about to come. I just want to encourage you that the good part is about to come. And so I glorify God. I glorify Him for the good part that I am now walking into. That He didn't let me die in my mess. That He didn't let me die in the pain. That He didn't let me die with the unforgiveness in my heart. But He's going to allow me to eat the good of the land. And so, thank you for allowing me to share one of my beautiful scars.
Hey, I'm Christy. I'm a single mother of 3 kids. My beautiful scar is that I've been through a lot of stuff as a child. Growing up, I was born to a 16-year-old and a 15-year-old parents. As I began to grow up, I just felt that I wasn't wanted. I was abused by my mother. My nose was broken at the age of 5. I had to tell lies to not have my mom get in trouble. I told them some little boy hit me in the nose with a baseball bat in order to save my mom. I remember the people coming to take me away, to take me to foster care, but my dad lied in order to have me stay at the house. So while my dad would go off in the military, I was shackled and handcuffed and kind of beat torture style by my mom. I never knew why. I never really did anything to get in trouble, but later on, when I turned around 17 years old, my mom told me that the reason why she did what she did to me was because she felt I took her childhood away, because she had me at a young age. She had to come back from college. There was a lot of stuff that was happening, and she had to come back and take care of me. I promised myself I would never, when I started having kids, never let anything happen to my kids, especially not, any kind of abuse. So I would work hard to try to protect my children. When I went out to, I'm in the Navy. Well, I'm retired now, but I used to be in the Navy. So that was my occupation. And when I had to be deployed, I had to find someone to keep my kids. So I chose my aunt, who I thought was, a good caretaker, had money. I definitely didn't want to send them with my mom because of the abuse. So while I was gone, my kids were being sexually abused by my cousin. And I did not know what was going on. I was, went about my day, but my kids started acting different. My daughter would threaten herself, like cut herself. And I thought she was being bullied at school. But one day we were on our way to Atlanta, and we stopped at a restaurant. And my daughter's best friend's mom called me and asked me if my daughter was in the car. And I said, yes. She's like, well, my daughter's screaming, in the background that your daughter said she's gonna kill herself. I looked back, I'm like, let me see your phone. She already erased all the messages. But not knowing we were going back to the home of the person that abused her. And I would continually do that without knowing that my child had been abused. We get there, she's just worried about, not breaking up the family because she thought she was guilty of, breaking the family up. So we went to counseling and everything. I had a younger son as well. I did not know my son. We didn't let him know anything about my daughter's abuse because we would try to protect him. In doing that, I did not know my son got abused as well by this same family member. That family member, told him that he would tell that my son was cussing or just to use the Xbox. And my son at 17 came out to us and told us that he had been abused from the age of 5 on up. So in that, I questioned God, why did you let this happen to my kids? I didn't do anything. When I was younger, I got abused. My kids didn't do anything. Why are you letting them get hurt? And I had to, I stopped believing in God. But I talked to my grandmother and I talked to an evangelist about that. And I told him I don't trust God because these are innocent. We were innocent and this happened to us. So somebody's got to tell me something, and God, they were like, well, God doesn't do that. There's evil in the world, but that wasn't enough. So I went to my children and asked them, do y'all believe in God still? Do you still trust him after all you've been through? And they told me yes. And that's when things started to shift and I started to trust God again. And it's been an up and down road, but I still believe that God has a plan, and he's given me a vision, and I'm just waiting to fulfill it whenever God is ready and sees fit. That's my beautiful story.
Hello, my name is Leah. I am a single mom, a cancer survivor, and my beautiful scar story is one of overcoming addiction. For me, I started out, I was abandoned at the hospital by my mom and my dad, who were both married when they had me, but they were married young. They left me there. I wasn't picked up till the next day by my grandmother, who came and got me. I ended up going back home with my mom, though, and my father, and he ended up leaving it when I was 3. That for me shaped kind of this broken little girl. I was silent for years. I didn't speak because of the trauma that I had seen happen between them. Then at the age of 10, I was raped by my mom's then boyfriend. That went on for 6 years, up until I was 16. But at the age of 13, I began to, I had my first drink before the rape took place. And I remember just feeling like I wasn't there. And so I thought that that was the answer to my pain. I didn't feel it. I didn't feel the rape. I didn't feel anything. I didn't even remember it when it was done because I had taken so much of the alcohol. And so I just continued until it was a full-on addiction, starting at 13. I don't even remember a lot of times or a lot of days in my youth because of that addiction. Like, I don't remember half of it because I was under the influence. At the age of 15, I started doing heroin. I started out at a party where everybody was, and I felt like in order to do what everybody else was doing, in order to continue to take whatever life was throwing at me, I had to be even more numb. The alcohol wasn't doing it enough for me, and so I started to do heroin. And then I started doing cocaine. So by the time I was 17, 18, I was a full-blown addict and alcoholic. I battled. I wanted to stop. I couldn't because I felt like every time I stopped, I felt everything that had gone on in my life, and I didn't want to feel it. I didn't want to be in reality. I wanted to be away so that I could continue to take it. I remember telling God one time, where this is the life you're giving me, at least let me be able to take it and walk through it this way so I won't feel the pain. And when I was about 22, I overdosed on the cocaine. I don't remember much about that night. I do remember when I woke up, they had pumped my stomach. I was on machines. I couldn't speak again. I couldn't do anything. I was kind of like almost paralyzed. Like I had so much in me that they said I clinically should have been dead. I remember at that point telling God either the lifestyle was going to take me out or the drugs and the alcohol, and I desperately wanted to stop. And I began to seek Him, and it wasn't until after I had my daughter in 2006 that I stopped doing the drugs. But then in turn for stopping the drugs, I picked up an addiction to self-mutilation. I was cutting, I would slice my wrist, I would do anything to make the pain numb or feel it in another way. I didn't want to think about how I was hurting from the rape, so I would cut myself and think about that the cut hurt and not the rape. And so that continued up until maybe 2 years ago that I actually stopped cutting, stopped mutilating, and then I stopped alcohol. I heard a voice from God saying that I had to do it. It was my life. It was my children's life. It was a cycle that I had to break, and that I had to feel the pain from the rape and the abandonment and the traumatic experiences so that I could heal. And so though it wasn't easy, I had to walk through that pain in order to be delivered from those other addictions. And I did. And I just want to let other women know, other teens know that are struggling in areas of addiction, that you can overcome it, that you can beat it, that you can get off of alcohol, get off of drugs, get off of doing self-mutilation, and that you can be healed, whole and healed, not just healed, but whole. That brokenness can be mended if you just trust God to walk you through it, allow yourself to feel it and don't numb it, because it never goes away when you numb it or cover it up. And that is my beautiful scar story.
Hi, my name is Shanette, and I will be sharing my war story. I was rejected, abandoned from birth by mother and father. And yeah, I lived family, my aunt took me in. That was like being in an orphanage, but I lived a life of pain. And even though I grew up in a quote Christian family, everybody went church, but it was the pain that I had to endure for, like, I'm talking about years of pain. And just fighting, trying just to survive. But and with that open door of rejection, that opens the door for resentment, anger. So I grew up angry. I hated my mother, and I became her. Being abused. I abused my children, and I worked, but yet, I suffered. I suffered in silence, openly, being in abusive relationships, and I took what really turned my life around was I was facing jail or a mental institution, so I decided to choose God, and it wasn't easy. And this is like 30 years ago, and I'm just trying to live and be that Christian that God has called you to be, or even just living a Christian life. But and I'm still not there yet. But like with that pain, that anger, like those things just don't come out. It takes a lot of deliverance that we just, a lot of us don't know about, don't have the right people in our lives. So we are suffering, walking as a Christian, just living like mediocre, and it's hard. And one thing I could say is that someone told me today. She said, all the things you've been through, you never gave up on God. You continued to trust Him, even when you fall, you will get back up. And we have to just learn to stay connected to God and just that having a family, and you think, okay, this is a Christian family. Granny goes to church, great grandma's a pastor, and it's hell. And like when I look back on my life, I'm looking for answers. I'm reaching out to them, and or I just get beaten down, and until you have, like, people will tell you, oh, God's gonna use you, but they give you no direction. God's gonna use you and you're gonna do this, but they still don't help you. So you're trying and you're seeking and you're running here and there, and you're with your family. You're with your family that you truly love, you look up to, and you're thinking, okay, God, this is my family, but what I've come to know, your family is those that are in Christ. Those are your sisters and brothers. And I had to forgive. I had to forgive. And when I say I have to forgive over and over. And I'm talking about over 30 years of forgiveness of things that family has done, has tried to kill me, plotted to kill my children because they want to see you in pain. But it's all the enemy that is using them. And we as you learn as a Christian, you don't know this, so you fight flesh and blood. But forgiveness is the key to walking and trusting God, because if you don't forgive, how can your Father forgive you? But I just want to end that we, like, a lot of times we look at people and we judge them because of how they look with scars and how they carry themselves. But children don't wake up and say, I want to be an abuser, I want to be an alcoholic, I want to be a drunk or an addict. We don't wake up like that. There are things and situations that have happened that have detrimented our life, and we know no way out. But I thank God for putting His Spirit in me, for loving me and keeping me when I couldn't keep myself, and bringing people that I don't even know into my life to hear on a radio station that can speak life into me, so that I can be the woman, be the warrior that God has called me to be.
Hello, I am Michelle. I am a wife, a mother, an author. I'm a minister, and I'm just a woman who is after God's own heart. And this is my beautiful scar story. It is a story that I call our perfect storm, and it is a story of forgiveness, in overcoming how to love my husband freely after infidelity. In that, I found purpose. I started to go after God desperately. But not only that, the Lord showed me that in my healing and in my journey to forgiveness, it was also an opportunity for my husband to heal, that he needed me to heal, that it was never his mistakes, his errors, or things he knowingly did, were things that were never meant for us not to be together. But what was difficult for me was how to forgive and how to move on, how to reconcile, how to love and trust, and how not to just walk on eggshells and think that forgiveness is supposed to look a certain way. I didn't want that. I wanted it to be so very genuine. And so I was going to walk away from my marriage because I didn't know how. I didn't know how to separate what my husband had done and who he was and who God was trying to show me that he was. It was just too painful. It was too much to bear. So I thought. And in this perfect storm, there is a beautiful 14-year-old girl who came from his infidelity. And I love her. I've met her twice, but first when she was 9 months old. And I don't think that right now that it's fair that he hasn't found it in his heart to be that part of his life, because he's a wonderful man and he's always been a wonderful father to our 2 children. And so in this journey to forgive, in this journey to continue to heal, in this journey to continue to process what has happened in my life, in our life, there is also a yearning within inside of me that he will find the place to understand that God makes no mistakes, and that she's not a mistake, and that she deserves to be in this life just like our children do. And what I hope is that as God has shown me that there's so much freedom in true forgiveness, that other people, not just women, but there are men who are also struggling. But my hope and my prayer is that my beautiful scar, my beauty for ashes, will help to release and to give people hope and to show them that they can truly, truly be free in loving someone and actually having them to love and to care for them as well. And we don't realize, or I didn't realize, that my roles as mother and wife is what I thought I was put on earth to do until this beautiful storm. The Lord actually revealed my purpose. I found my purpose of why I exist because of this perfect storm. And together now, it is an honor to be of one flesh with him. It is an honor that we are still friends since high school. It is an honor that I behold his last name. It is an honor to know that he is still not my God, but our God keeps us together as one flesh. It is still a wonderful and beautiful matrimony that we have together of what God did. And as we continue to grow together, I can see that he continues to learn that the God in me is the same God who still loves him. And all that he needs to do is that he needs to continue on the road to finding his own freedom, finding his own healing, that although he might see it in me, it's something that he's going to have to come to God with. And I know that that will happen. I had to learn my place, and I had to understand that it was for me to walk with him, not carry the burden. It was never meant for us not to be together. His daughter is meant to be here in this life. There is no bitterness. There is no shame that I carry. There is no unforgiveness that I have for either one of them. The Lord has released me, and I am free. I walk fearless and free in my love, because God is love. And every day my desire is to make God smile. And that's what I choose to do. So this is my beautiful scar. Your scars are